All right. Good morning. Good morning. All right. Good deal. I think I get the award for most miles traveled. I didn't fly in. I drove in. The main reason my daughter came, and so while I'm here sweating and toiling today, she's at the beach. So she's living it up. So I'm really thankful to be here. Glad to be able to share just a little bit of time for you. Can y'all hear very well? You're going to get a workout because I am not a podium standard. That's just not how I roll. Glad to be here. Number one, thank you. Thank you, Cheryl, for inviting me down. Thank you all very much for what you do. I know sometimes it can feel like a thankless job. You guys and gals, I say guys in general, please don't take offense. You guys are what keeps our roads rolling. And so thank you very much for what you do and for your service for our motorists. Your motorists, I say us in general. I'm here, I think Cheryl invited us down. So I want to take a quick look. Even though I'm from Tennessee, I'm a Yankee by your standards, I guess, right? I'm a northerner, so 650 miles to the north. But even at that, if we look at our country as a whole, there's a lot of things from sea to shining sea. There's a lot of things that are different. But even with all of that, there's a lot of things that we share in common. If we look at our roadway systems, a lot of things that we see that we have in common, a lot of things that we share, a lot of things that we look at that look very similar. A lot of the same problems that you have down here in Florida are the same problems that we have in Knoxville, Tennessee. That's where I'm from, in Knoxville, Tennessee. So we look at these things, I want us to kind of take a look, and this is such a wonderful place and a great opportunity for us to kind of come together, look and share ideas and look and see what we can do. I was looking at the agenda that Cheryl had put out, and I was just looking and going through, and if we take a look, here's what I find very interesting. If you go through just today, if we look at just today alone, what we're going to look at today, we're going to share information, we're going to discuss the importance, we're going to look at new technology, new innovation, bridging the gap, advances in technology, sharing experience, and engaging the public, and we're looking at some new things, we're looking at new innovation, lots of new things you're going to hear just today, and it's all, guess what? It's all free, right? And you get breakfast and lunch. So this is great, right? So all of this, and we're getting all this right here in Daytona, Tennessee. So it's or Daytona, Florida. I said Tennessee. That's crazy. But it's all great. So we're going to have a good time, a good day. So it's going to be interesting. So if we look at innovation, if we look at what we're going to cover today, we look at all the things that we're going to finish today and look at, we look at these things. If we look at innovation, to be able to take the next step, if we're going to be innovative, if we're going to look and look and see how can we progress, then we've got to have a baseline, right? We've got to start with something. So if we look at really what is our starting point, I come from an engineering background, and I think Ricky, you mentioned it. We got to start with, we talked about the MUTCD. Even from an engineering background, even if we don't talk about engineering, but even our signs on our roadway systems, there's got to be a baseline. So our baseline, we look at the MUTCD, the Manual on Uniform Traffic Control Devices, gives us our standard for all of our signs, right? We look at this, if we look at the very first chapter, if we look at the very start, it gives us some guidance. The standard is traffic control devices, it gives this, or their support shall not bear any advertising message or any message that is not related to traffic control. We want it to be simple. We want it to really serve that purpose, right? Nothing that's not related to traffic control. Now this is what I want you to remember, because this is going to be very, very critical. Very critical. Shall meet 5 basic requirements. It's going to fulfill a need. It's going to command attention. It's going to convey a clear, simple meaning, and it's going to command respect from road users and give adequate time for proper response. So this is going to be very, very important. These 5 basic things, 5 basic things for traffic control devices. These are things we're putting out on a roadway. So if we look at innovation, if we look at things that how can we be innovative? How can we look at this and how can we be innovative? How can we look at things? How can we think outside the box? So where do we go? If we look at innovation, where's one country that we think about being innovative? Now this is, how many have heard of Russia in the news as of lately? Yeah. Now how many think about Russia as being innovative? Probably not so much, right? We think about Russia maybe being in the dark ages. How do you think about Russia being innovative in traffic control? Maybe not so much, right? I was looking because now I'm in a protective class because I'm over 40, so I'm in a protective class. I'm not going to ask you to raise your hands on that one either, but I'm in a protective class. So now guess what's my favorite reading? Reader's Digest, right? All right, so I was looking at my favorite magazine, Reader's Digest, and I found an article that I found very, very interesting. There's a little place in Russia. Russia has some of the same concerns that we do. They have traffic problems. They had this one area, heavily congested, a lot of pedestrians, a lot of more older pedestrians. You will see what this guy's looking at here in just one second. Older pedestrians walking through, cars speeding through, the same things. Now, we're in Florida, right? And one thing that I've seen in Florida is what? All of the old people from Tennessee, right? They're all down here. They're all down here. I don't know what's going on. Anyway, but we have a lot of the same things. So they had one solution. They were thinking outside the box. So how could they get the attention of the motorists that are zipping through? They had this crosswalk. They couldn't get cars to slow down. How could they think outside the box and get the attention of these motorists and get them to slow down? How could they do that? So they began to think, they got the think tank together, and there had to be one teenager on the group. Had to be one teenager on the group because he had this one idea. And what did he say? Let's get some topless girls and have them hold some roadway signs, some speed limit signs up, and see if we can't get them. This is a true story. And this was in Reader's Digest. This is crazy. So they got topless women out to actually hold signs. This is an actual campaign in Russia to hold up road signs to actually slow down traffic. And guess what? It worked. It worked. Now, there were some drawbacks. The pedestrian traffic increased by an amount of 700,000%. And it was mostly males. I don't know really what and then I'm not sure what happened there. It did slow down traffic, and as we can see, there's an experiment that showed that it significantly slowed traffic in a pedestrian crosswalk. The pedestrian crosswalk, that traffic increased. So I'm thinking here, but look at this. Here's what we think. We go back to they don't have them. They don't have the standards that we do. But think about this. Look, it fulfilled a need. It did command attention. It conveyed a clear, simple meaning, and it commanded respect. But so here's what I thought. I'm thinking, hey, wait, I've got this, right? This is pretty clear, and it's clear and simple, right? We've got the MUTCD. We can do this, and we can do this in Tennessee. So I'll bring this back to the table. I'm like, I'm not going to elevate this up to our senior leadership. I'm just going to try it right here in East Tennessee. So I'm like, hey, I'm going to give it a roll. So what I did not contemplate, here's what I didn't think about. I didn't think about all of our Fair Labor Acts and all the stringent requirements that we have here in the good old United States of America, right? Because what do we end up with? I end up with Chuck, who shows up on my job. And so a little different intended, it is not the same effect that we had here. So in any case, all right. So that actually didn't happen. So here's what we're going to look at. I'm going to throw out some numbers at you, but not going to get hung up in statistics numbers. But if we look back to 2013, here's why we're here. In 2013, we had this is just in around here. We had 5.5 million traffic accidents per year, 2.3 million accidents with injury. And just in 2013, 32,719. So you say that's 2013. Let's look a little closer. In 2015, we had 6.3 million accidents, 2.44 million accidents with injury, and 35,092 fatalities on a roadway. You're like, wow, those numbers seem really, really high, and they are. This should be alarming to all of us, and this is something that we all know. This really should grab us and kind of shake us by the collars. Because of what? Because if we look at the difference in just 2 years, if we look at the difference in just 2 year statistics, the amount of accidents increased by 800,000 additional accidents in just 2 years. Fatalities increased by almost 2,400 more fatalities, 2,400. And that's the sharpest increase in over 50 years. So what does that mean? Job security that we don't want. Job security that you don't want. That's not what we're looking for. This is not a business that we're looking for job security, right? That's not what we want. We'd be just as fine sitting back wherever. That's not what we're looking for. So how do we do that? So we talk about safety. We talk about what can we do. This is one of the primary jobs that we're looking at. How can we make our job easier? How can we make our roadways safer? So if you look at this, we break down those statistics, and I don't want to get tied so much up in numbers, but I want to kind of put this into perspective on where we're at. If we look at this, if I'm up here for 45 minutes. If we look at those statistics, that's one accident every 5 seconds. One accident with injury every 13 seconds. One fatality every 15 minutes. So if I'm up here for 45 minutes, that means in just 45 minutes, there'll be 540 accidents. There'll be 208 accidents with injury, and there'll be 3 fatalities in just the time that I'm standing right here this morning. So, and that's really hard for us to understand. Y'all see this, and you see this every day, and it's really tough. So why I'm here and why Cheryl's asked me, and I really appreciate that again, is talk about end of queue accidents. And as Cheryl opened up this morning, we'll talk about this, and we'll talk about it. I'll hit it again before the presentation is over with. These end of queue accidents. Now, if we're talking about this, you say, what's a queue? This queue is basically all a queue is the end of that longest line of traffic. That's what we're talking about. So it's basically the end of that backup, the back of the backup. That's what we're talking about. End of queue accidents. Y'all have seen them all the time. So if we look at this, if we consider an incident on a 3-lane roadway, we see this all the time. We got a small, this is going to be something minor up front. We got somebody that spins out, whatever it may be, up front. You got a minor incident up front. Can somebody raise their hand when you see a queue? When you see a queue, who wants to raise your hand? If you see a queue, foreman, all right, back in the back. Mike, you got it? We got a queue right here, right? So we know the queue is just right here with this one little car right here. The white car is the only queue we got, right? That's not what happens, right? Because we all know as the queue forms, what happens? The queue continues to grow. Exactly. The queue is never stationary because what happens? Because as those cars stop, what continues to come on? We got more and more and more traffic. We know because we got more. We got the traffic bottlenecked up front. We got traffic that continues to come in behind. Now we've got lanes decreased, and now we got what? We got a traffic backup. How many of us have ever been sitting right here? How many of us have ever been in this car at the very, very back of the queue? We all been there, right? Fun place to be, right? That's where we want to be. Because what? Are we sitting in the back of that queue? What are we doing? We're like, hey, this is great. This is where I want to be. This is fun. What are we doing? No. What's the first place where we go? Our eyes go to that. We're like, oh my gosh, where are we going to go, right? Because we're on high alert. Because what's happening? Because we're at a dead stop, right? What's happening behind us? Yeah, they're doing 100 miles an hour. Because what we're looking at, our eyes go to the rearview mirror because it's okay. It's okay when it's like this, right? When everything's nice and clear and everything's good and everything's rosy. But what happens when we see this? That's when the pucker factor goes up. That's what we call seats with the high pucker factor. Because if you're stopped, where are you going to go? Where are you going to go? We start looking for that. And we've seen it. Y'all seen it. You see this because you start planning, right? When you're that car at the back of the queue, what are you thinking? Where am I going to go? Where am I going to go? Well, I'm going to go to the ditch. I'm going this way, right? We start making plans because we've seen it, because we've been at the back of the queue. We don't want to be there. That's not a fun place to be. So how can we protect that car at the back of the queue? How can we do that? How many of you ever heard of Bonnaroo? All right, back in the back. How many of you ever been to Bonnaroo? How many would ever admit to going to it? All right. Well, how many of you have been and remember it? All right, I'd be like, nope, I've been, I don't remember. All right. How many of you know it's in Tennessee? How many of you ever, it's in Tennessee. It's in a little town, a little sleepy little town in Manchester. Anybody know the population of Manchester, Tennessee? 300. Close. You're close. He said 300. Close. It's about 10,000 people. 10,261. All right. It's a little sleepy little town in Tennessee. Who knows the population of Manchester during the Bonnaroo Festival? Anybody want to take a stab at it?
Quadruple.
Quadruple? Close. About 110,000. So we had about 100,000 people to this event. 100,000 people. So if we think about this, if you want to look, if you've ever been to Tennessee, if you ever want to attend the Bonnaroo Festival, and remember it, however you want to do that. But if you want to go, it's just around Chattanooga, Smyrna area, somewhere in that area. If you look right here, it's along I-24. Now I-24, the interstate there it's two lanes each direction. So we think about this. If we look at this area, I'm going to point to this screen over here in this corner. If we look back here in the background, here it's a better picture. It's about a 700-acre farm. This is I-24 in the background here. It's 2 lanes each direction. So what the Bonnaroo Festival does, it takes this 700-acre farm and turns it from this into that. Now that is cars. That is all cars. That is people. That is people here. There's a couple of stages. So you can imagine. Now y'all have what? Just right down the road. Y'all have the track, right? The Daytona track. So it looks very similar to this, no doubt, right? We have the Bristol Motor Speedway, so we can imagine. It's about the same deal. You have people parking, and it's just crazy trying to get this amount of people into that small of a space. So what happens during Daytona weekend? It's crazy, the traffic, right? Trying to get people in and hustle them in and hustle them back out. So you can imagine same type scenario that we had. Trying to get them, for us, trying to get them in on 2 lanes in and 2 lanes out. So you can imagine the traffic backups that we had. For us, everything changed. We had this couple, Brandon Wilson and Deja Morris. They came in. They had done nothing wrong. They were headed to the Bonnaroo Festival. They were not intoxicated. They were not inebriated. They were not in any way, shape, form, or fashion. The only thing they did wrong on that weekend was, guess where they were sitting? They were at the back of the queue. They were at the back of the queue. They were coming in to participate in the Bonnaroo Festival, and were sitting at the back of the queue.
On the night of June 13th, traffic along I-24 was already backed up because of a previous crash. The tractor-trailer did not stop in time and slammed into the cars sitting in the queue. The red highlighting shows the most dangerous spot to have been sitting in that night. It's those secondary crashes that are often more severe than the first. Vehicles are usually traveling faster and have no time to stop.
Terrible, terrible situation. And I'm sure some of y'all sitting right here, your minds are flashing back to scenes that you all have seen, terrible, terrible situations that you all have seen and had to go through. So what we looked at this, we're like, what can we do? What can we do to help? What can we do to make a difference? Because you know, it's one thing to know if they were, if somehow they were intoxicated, but just to be sitting there and not doing anything. Because guess what? It could have been my daughter. Could have been some of your family. Could have been somebody else. So what can we do? What can we do? So our commissioner said we've got to make a change. So in what we do, our focus is what? Our focus is always here for incident response. When we look at the TIMS training, what is it? Our focus is always where? Our focus is always on the crash scene. We lose focus of everything else but what's going on right where the crash is at. And that's part of it. Now I understand that. I get that. We understand that the crash scene has to be secured. And we're not saying to negate that part of it. That's not what we're looking at. But what we're looking at is a change in focus, because guess what happens? Because when we lose focus, when we say this is secured and has to be secured, and we forget everything else going on, well, guess what happens if we're just focused on just this right here? Guess what? There's a whole nother dynamics where else? There's a whole nother dynamics at the back of the queue, right? There's still things going on back here, because we may have, Cheryl mentioned it, and I think somebody else mentioned it here, we may have a minor incident up front, but guess what's still going on at the back? We've still got traffic that's backing up at the back, and those secondary accidents can lead to some major accidents. So for us, it was a change of perspective. It was a change of focus on really and we're still saying, again, secure the scene and then secure the scene, but let's still have a focus. Let's still have a mentality. What's going on at the back of the queue? What can we still look at? What can we send some folks here? Let's get this secured. Then let's go back and think about what's going on at the back of the queue, because that is still important as well. So we launched a Protect the Queue initiative. What we want to do is tell what a queue is, why it's important, and what our folks can do to protect it. We looked at secondary accidents, and we looked at really the main importance of queue protection is why it's important. And it's these secondary accidents as a result of traffic queuing. Cheryl mentioned some statistics. If you look at the studies that show that 2.8% goes up for every minute, every single minute that traffic is delayed, for every minute, statistically speaking, that goes up, that there is a chance that there will be a secondary collision. So when we hit that 33-minute mark, statistically speaking, there's a 100% chance that there's going to be a secondary accident. So for each minute, so we hit that 33-minute mark, you think about that. You're on the roadway system, you've got an accident. It may be a minor fender bender, it may be a disabled car out here on I-10, I-95, whatever it may be. Just a disabled car that's up here. Nobody's hurt, but for every minute, we hit that 33-minute mark, statistically speaking, there's almost a 100% chance back here that there's going to be what? There's going to be a secondary collision. But guess what happens in that secondary collision? statistically speaking, the chances of a fatality or a serious injury go up enormously. And so we're looking at very serious injuries. So we're looking at no injuries here, just a disabled car. That's why, Ricky, that's why your business is very, very important. That's why quick clearance is very, very important. And so all these things. This is what happened to us. And I can show this picture because the guy walked out of the hospital the next day. We were doing a rolling roadblock, and we had traffic rolling at just a slow pace. Guy come up and was distracted. Y'all have distracted drivers here? Man, I tell you what, it's craziness. It scares me to death. Our guys working on the side of the roadway system. Drove up. We were just finished a rolling roadblock. Had released traffic. Traffic was rolling about 45 miles an hour. No skid marks, no nothing. Ran right into the back of a semi-truck. We did not have an officer that was protecting the queue in the right position. He had just left his post to get up where the guys, because the rolling roadblock was over with. The guy just was not paying attention. Ran right into the back. But he walked out of the hospital the next day. It's the reason I show this picture, because there was no major injuries. But this is what can happen. Now, typically, this photo is not a good. The results are not great. But y'all have seen these kind of things. So these accidents can be very devastating. What we look at is really doing the impossible, because what we know from doing this, protect the queue, is because we're doing the impossible. What are we trying to do? We're trying to get back time. How many of you have ever stuck your foot in your mouth? No, I'm the only one, right? It's just me. It's just me. How many of you ever had that moment you'd like to have about 3 or 4 seconds back? Like, dude, I wish I'd have had 3 or 4 seconds back. But that's what we're trying to do. We're trying to give back time, because really that's what we're doing. We're trying to give people back enough time to make a better decision. If you're on a roadway system, if you're in a car and you're traveling at 70 miles per hour, at 70 miles per hour, you're covering 100 feet per second. For every second, you're traveling 100 feet. So if you're driving a car down the roadway system at 70 miles per hour, you look up, you look down, you change from your favorite radio station to the next 3 seconds or whatever. You look down and look at your phone, look back up for 3 seconds. How far have you traveled? Traveled the whole length of a football field. I try to tell my son, he's 16 years old, and boys are so stupid. Oh, they're so stupid. But I try to tell him, I said, son, let me ask you this. So you and your friends in a car, you're going to play a game. You're traveling down the interstate, and it's a fun game you're going to play, and it's going to be blindfold the driver. I said, if you ever want to play this game where your friend is in the passenger seat, and he says, I'm going to cover up your eyes for 3 seconds. We'll see how far you can go for 3 seconds. And you're going to travel the length of a football field. Are you going to play? He said, oh, no, that doesn't make any sense, right? But that's what we're doing at that 3 seconds. We take our eyes off the road for 3 seconds. That's what it is. And that's that distance. It's the length of a football field. But at the same time, it takes, what we're looking at doing is, if at 70 miles per hour, at the same token, it takes 730 feet. If we look at this table right here, it's in the MUTCD. It's stopping sight distance as a function of speed. For an average car, this is an average car, average brakes, average driver. At 70 miles per hour, if I'm driving in my car, I'm average, and I see an obstruction up ahead, or I see something that needs me to bring my car to a complete stop, if I see that, and I recognize, well, something's different up ahead, I need to get my foot off of the accelerator, bring it off the accelerator, over to the brake, apply the brake, and bring my car to a complete stop, it's going to take me 730 feet to bring it to a complete stop. That's pretty astounding. That's almost 1/8 of a mile, something along those lines, which is pretty interesting. Now, that's an average car. Now, you think about distracted driving. You think that works with a fully loaded semi? Probably not so much. 70,000 pounds. Probably not going to come to stop in 730 feet. All these things we look at. So it's interesting. You start looking at these statistics, you're like, I'm done. I'm out. I'm going to go be a school teacher. I'm going to do something different, right? But we do this because what? We want to save lives. We want to help people. That's why you're here. So do y'all really know that people don't drive the speed limit when y'all are around? And I'm not trying to be smart, because I gave this presentation in one of our classes at the Knox County Sheriff's Department, and I was just like, I mean, y'all really know that? I mean, I don't know, because what we see is normal people. When we're driving like a normal car, when we see y'all's car, what happens? Everybody slows down. And when we get past, everybody speeds back up, because that's just the way it works. I mean, that's just how things happen. But what happens if we lose touch? When we lose touch, what? Everybody speeds back up. So if our queue protection is too far back, if we say be prepared to stop, if our queue protection is too far back, what happens? They're going to slow down. They're going to get away from that queue, and what happens? They're going to speed back up. They're going to be right back in that queue. So we're trying to get back that time. We're trying to get back that notice. We'll let them know that there's slow traffic ahead. We're going to try to let them know and give them that fair warning. There's lots of tools we can use. I saw that y'all have a lot of these that you employ on my way in today. Lots of things we can use. We have the 511. We have the overhead, we have the MUTCD, lots of signs. We have changeable message boards. We have lots of different things and lots of different devices that we can employ. Mention law enforcement officers. That, you guys, I'm telling you what, man, thank you all. Again, thank you all for what you do. Because you are one of our most favorite tools. You know why? Number one, you have a gun on your hip. And that helps out tremendously because we don't. We are not enforcement. Because what? You guys, number one, and you're intimidating. But what do we like for it? They don't see the gun on your hip on the side of the road. What? What do they see? Red and blue, absolutely. They like the lights, right? Because they see the lights, and that's what grabs people's attention, right? Because they see that, and they can see that at a distance. They see the distance, and that grabs people's attention. Because when they see that, they're like, hey, there's changed conditions up ahead, and not only with those changed conditions, but with those changed conditions, when I fly through here, there could be consequences as well, right? I'm TDOT. I have no enforcement capabilities. I can't write a ticket. I do not carry a gun on my hip, but we love you guys, and because you guys are very, very useful, I'm not saying you're tools. Don't walk out there and say, Duane said y'all were a tool. No, that's not. That's what I'm saying. You're useful tools in what we can do as far as protecting the queue. Very, very useful, and that's what we love. We use law enforcement a lot on our projects to help slow traffic because they see those blue lights, you can see them for a mile, right? When people see those lights, what do? What's our automatic reaction, right? Is what? Our foot comes off the accelerator. It doesn't matter if you're doing 30 miles an hour. Our reaction is what? Our foot comes off the accelerator. It's just what we do. So we love using our officers and love them. Queue trucks. Now, in our not in just in TDOT, one of the things we use is our queue trucks. Now, this is some trucks that we have outfitted. I'm not sure why those videos are sideways, but these are some trucks that we have outfitted here with lights and with signs on the back. And these are our first generation trucks that we used. Here is our second generation trucks that we've had, and we actually have a very few trucks that have they have the fold down Scorpion truck mounted attenuators. Those are few and far between because number one, they're expensive. Here's in action. Here's what we see. We've all seen this right here, right? Traveling down the road, and when traffic is in this configuration, when traffic is like this, everything's great, right? Everything's slow, everybody's moving along in the snail's pace, we're fine, right? There's no worries because traffic's moving at the same pace, so we're fine. There's no major worries. Here's where it gets dicey. When we look at this section here, we got traffic moving slow here, but what happens is traffic tops the hill. Traffic tops that hill running what? 55, 70 miles per hour? That's our danger zone. That's really where things get really dicey. That's where things get scary. But that's where our queue protection comes into play. What we want to do is warn those folks. Hey, look, traffic is changed up ahead. We're trying to give that extra time. Let them know, hey, you need 3 to 5 extra seconds to slow down to understand that traffic has changed. Here's what we do. We put trucks on the side of the road. We outfit them with these signs. We outfit them with lights. We put be prepared to stop and actually have them in a lot of cases. Now, this is our own truck. Now, we have, and I'll talk about this very briefly. I'm running out of time. We have on our larger construction projects actually have trucks that park on the side of the road with truck-mounted attenuators, and actually they are pretty stationary because it's hard to back those big trucks down the road. But for our local trucks, our smaller trucks, we are actually able to back those down the road when it's feasible. Now we don't advise if there's some narrow bridges and stuff like that. There are conditions where we don't advise that. But for these, we've been very, very successful. And then being able to alert folks, and these are very mobile. We put them in all of our, we have 24 counties just in our region. These trucks can be mobilized and can be on the interstate within 5 to 10 minutes in most cases. And we can put them out there real quickly. We can put the signs up there in the trucks, and they're mobile enough that we can launch them out there and get them where we need them to be. And we know that things that change very, very quickly. We know that traffic can go from this. We can see traffic's congested right here, back in the back. And this is literally, these pictures were taken within 5 minutes of each other. So we know traffic changes really quickly. We signed a memorandum of standard operating guidelines that kind of detailed what kind of lights, what kind of stickers, all that fine stuff to put on those. And in addition to that, we put these in our construction contracts. We actually had on our construction contracts, our bigger jobs, on our interstates and major state routes, spec'd in there with higher traffic counts, that the contractor did maintain those and provided 2 Q trucks. And actually those are the bigger trucks that had the truck mounted attenuators as well. So, and actually with those bigger trucks, what we had to do, since you can't back a big truck down the shoulder of the roadway, they would leapfrog. You put a truck out here, and then when traffic would back up to the point that truck is no longer useful, you deploy another truck behind it, and this truck gets in, drives around, and then you just leapfrog back that way. And we actually paid the contractor for that. And we've been very successful. There are a lot of challenges with that program. The biggest challenge is training and getting those folks in those trucks, because guess who they won't put in those trucks? The lowest guy that doesn't do anything else, right? And you find him out there asleep. We've had our state troopers, because we used, on one of our jobs, we used those guys in lieu of state troopers, and they didn't like that very much, because our state troopers liked getting the overtime. And so our state troopers were giving me 15-minute updates on what they weren't doing. And so it was tough, because they weren't always in the right location, and it was really hard on me, which is good. That's stuff I needed to know. But in any case, it's really important for them to be in the right place at the right time, because if queue protection is something that we're going to do, having them in that right location and having them going back and even forward with the queue is very, very, very important. Because if you lose touch with the queue, if you lose touch of where the end of that queue is at, then it's really of no good value. So we've had very, very good success, and I'll go through this real quickly. We can look at these charts and graphs, and I apologize that we had really, really good statistics, because we entered all of our information into, it's called Titan, our Titan database, which all our accident reports went in, and they changed how we kept all of our records. Up until June, I think it was June of 2015, I think when it did, we were comparing apples to apples. Now, if we go back, the old data is not compared so much with the new data, and the record kept is a little bit different. But when we were comparing apples to apples, we were showing in just 1 year a 25% reduction in secondary crashes. But if we look at the original, if we look at June of 2013 with 2015, we showed a 48% reduction in secondary accidents. And if we go back and look at those statistics, those secondary accidents is where you're having your major, there's the chances of those being a major incident and major injuries and even fatalities are where that's where it's at. So we are very, very happy with this program. So with that being said, I think that's it. What we do, and we don't get tied up in the numbers, because what we do realize, and what I understand, and what you all understand, because we sit up here and talk about numbers, we can throw numbers all day long. But what we do understand, what I understand, and what you know, is behind every single one of those numbers, that there's people. And whether that's my family, whether that's your family, and that's why y'all are in this. And I guarantee that's why y'all do what you do. It's not for the money, it's not for the pay. We do have to put food on the table, but we do it because we want to help and why we want to save lives. And that's why I feel very passionate about this, and that's why I do my part, and I'm be happy to help y'all in any way, shape, form possible. And I don't have any business cards, so if you need my contact information, that's the best way to reach me. That's my cell phone number. My email address is there. If we can help in any way, shape, form, fashion, we'd love to do that, love to help in whatever way I can. So if you got any questions, please let me know. All right, thank you.